The Siftpop podcast is recorded in front of a live internet audience.
Live from a bunker in the heart of the Ozarks. Whatever you do, don't wake them up from their hypersleep. It's Siftpop.
I was having a good nap, and you ruined it.
I'm just gonna call my my sleep every night hypersleep.
Yeah,
Boys, I'm going into hypersleep. Leave me alone.
so much cooler. Because technically that means you don't age when you're sleeping.
Exactly. Welcome to Siftpop, streaming live on Mixlr every Friday or available to download later in your podcast feed. Unless, of course, you're a patron.
Patrons get perks.
Patrons get those perks. I'm Aaron Dicer from YourMovieFriend.com. I'm joined, of course, by Andrew Ormsby from Flick Freaks.
Ahoy!
And every week we'll be joined by a pop culture guru to chat about movies, television, and whatever else from the pop culture world is on our minds. And today's guru, he's back. It's John Paula.
Woohoo! Golf clap.
Welcome, John. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me back. I think this is my fifth or sixth appearance.
You're a pro, man.
Here.
You are a Siftpop pro. We're glad to have you back, too.
There's nothing I love more than ragging on crappy movies. I'm excited to tell you what. Talk about one today. What were you saying just then, though?
No, it's always good to have you back on. I love your insight.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You are, and I've said this before, one of the most professional YouTubers I've ever met. I love your shows. You are so professional that our local theater actually shows one of your YouTube videos outside of their theater.
I've been meaning to give that guy a call.
Yeah, we last time we went in there, it was just showing like on their big screen right out in front, and it just made me smile.
And I have to wonder if
it was a Rogue One too.
I'm getting paid for any of that. And I don't know if that's a bad, because I feel like they probably downloaded it illegally and then just put it on their own internal loop, and I'm not getting any revenue.
If you copyright struck IMAX Theater, that would be the best thing in the world.
Oh, don't put it past me. I have gone after people like that before. I have no qualms about it.
Well,
I am very vigilant in protecting my work.
Well, and you should be. You're right, because if they were actually playing it off YouTube and you were getting hits for every time that played on a loop outside, that's significant for you. But if they downloaded it and are putting it on a loop, that's different. That's stealing your work. So,
although to be fair, I don't know about significant. Even if they played it on a constant 24-hour loop, 7 days a week, that's at most a few hundred plays at pennies on the dollar. So at most, if they've played it for a whole year, like you might have suggested, I might have missed out on $10, maybe.
Okay, well, that's what you should do.
So I think I just want to be like, hey, I know what you've done. Give me a free pass to the next laser showing I'm going to. We'll call it even.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
maybe throw in one of those large popcorns and everything. I'll just look the other way. Forget this ever happened.
There you go.
Because those laser tickets, they're expensive.
Yeah, they are.
You got to pay for the upgrade, the 3D glasses, the whole IMAX. You up upwards of $20, $25 for a single seat. And then you go with the family or the wife, and then it's like, all right, well, there goes $100 in one night, and all I saw was a 90-minute film.
Yeah, it is the next thing, and it is beautiful, but it is expensive. That is for sure.
Yeah, I saw Doctor Strange in laser. That was the only thing I've seen pretty much this year in that format, but it was a good one.
Yeah, if you had to pick one, that one or Rogue One. They were both great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I might go back and see Rogue One again. I saw The Force Awakens twice, and my second screening was at Laser, and that was a good way to see it the second time.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't have to focus as much on the plot or the dialogue. I sort of appreciate and just sort of soak in all the visuals, and that was nice.
Yeah, I had a very similar experience. My second viewing of Force Awakens was in Laser as well, and it was absolutely amazing.
But it was not at the one here in Branson.
No, it was in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So that was my first.
Oh, you went to the TCL.
Yeah, that was my first laser experiences. Was at the TCL last January, and I saw The Force Awakens. So fascinating
Gorgeous
stuff.
Theater. I love that place.
Absolutely beautiful.
There's a reason. There is the reason why I quote unquote film my movie night show in the Chinese theater.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place.
It's the prettiest theater in the world, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Great looking place.
All right, well, let's get into some pop culture talk for this week. We're going to, of course, go through it. We're going to talk about Passengers. We're going to briefly talk about Assassin's Creed and Sing as well. We're going to do a best ever challenge today, a big one. Best science fiction movies ever. So that's a big category. We'll get into that in that. And then, of course, we'll end with Buried Treasure. But we like to start with a little bit of Do We Care? So Andrew will read some pop culture headlines for us, and John and I will say if we care to talk more about them.
Before you begin, Andrew, is it bad that at the end of 2016, I reflexively just want to say, no, I don't care?
Yeah. Let's just get out.
I just, automatically, that's my gut reaction is, I don't really care about anything. I just want this to be over.
I just remember, I keep coming back to that Golden Globes.
I'll humor you. What do you got?
I keep coming back to the Golden Globes with Will Ferrell and Kristen Wiig, where it's like, you get out of here. That's how I feel about 2016. Just get out of here. But every single week, we have 3 Do We Care topics that we go over, see if we care or not. First one up, Denis Villeneuve, director of Prisoners, Arrival, and the upcoming Blade Runner 2049, is being eyed to direct the remake of Dune.
Yeah, I saw that. Can I admit...
This is serendipitous. I just saw the original Dune last week for the first time, and I was not a fan.
Oh, the movie,
I don't know if that movie is salvageable unless it's a miniseries. There's just so much in it. There's so much world building. I feel like you need a longer 8-9 hour experience to really do it justice.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
The book is great, though.
That's interesting you say that, John, because I was just going to admit I haven't seen Dune. I've never seen it, and so it's just one I haven't taken the time to go back to, and so it remains on my list of shame. But
I've never seen Sting prancing around everywhere fighting giant
Oh my gosh, I had to rewind it. I was just there was something about like, wow, this is. I wish I saw this earlier. There's some intrinsic, uniqueness and flair and memorability to the movie. It does feature Patrick Stewart riding a giant space worm into battle.
Yeah, it does.
Before he was ever in Star Trek. And a lot of familiar faces, Brad Dourif and Dean Stockwell.
Yeah.
And Sting.
Sting.
And Sting. So it's an interesting movie, but it's also like really, really bad. There's so much going on, so much. I mean, the movie opens with like a 3-minute floating head just delivering verbose exposition to get you caught up.
And it's
like if the Star Wars text crawl was a floating disembodied head in space that continued for 5 more minutes, and it was just like proper noun after proper, and it's like this is. What is going on? I'm already checked out.
Yeah, but if you read the book, you know there's a lot of potential there. There really is for a good
there is.
movie.
I like the idea. I like the property. I just don't know if it can be done in a 2-hour film.
What do you feel, Andrew? What do you think?
Denis Villeneuve is more than proved himself to me as a director who can take sci-fi and adapt it into a brilliant story that everybody can enjoy.
So do you believe that almost any story is salvageable by the right person?
Absolutely.
I kind of believe that too. I kind of feel like the most important thing, I mean, you would have to adapt the story, but the most important thing is the brain and the energy behind it rather than the actual source material.
There's always somebody out there who can take a piece of writing and make it brilliant for the film.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I go with that too.
Next one up. This one makes me so happy. Zack Snyder is taking a break from directing DC films after next year's Justice League movie. Woo-hoo-hoo! Thank you, God. You are
good.
up there.
I'm with you.
I'm with you
just
too.
hope whoever.
I just feel bad for Zack Snyder.
I don't. He's ruined DC.
He hasn't ruined it. We just said any property can be saved.
Yeah. It is being saved because he's being taken out until 2020. I think he's taken a 5-year hiatus from DC. He's making a war film, and that has nothing to do with DC. So after this, they're gonna have to be getting new people.
That seems maybe like it'll be more his style because I hope whoever replaces him just has a propensity for saturation because something that those movies are sorely lacking is just color.
Yeah.
There's no color in those movies. And
There's
it's
no
Superman.
yellows.
It's bright blue, red cape, yellows, and you see him on screen, and Henry Cavill looks like he's just wearing a muted gray suit with like chest pads. There's not, and it's a comic book. It's supposed to be colorful. It's supposed to be bright and flashy and fun. And he just zapped all of the energy out of those movies with like the most serious, gritty version possible. And there is, I think, a time and a place for that. The Dark Knight succeeded in the dark and gritty, but I don't know.
Well, it's because Batman himself is dark and gritty. There's too many polarizing people in DC for you to make everything dark and gritty.
Well, yeah, I watch the one DC TV show I watch is The Flash. and I've stuck with the Flash because it's bright and fun, and I love those people. The guy that I'm still upset that they didn't cast the guy that plays the Flash on TV in the movie, because I think he is
Grant Gustin.
I think he is great.
So good.
I guess that's not true. I guess I watch Supergirl too. I still watch Supergirl as well.
You don't watch Arrow. That's the one you don't.
Correct.
Watch, right?
I don't watch Arrow. I don't watch Legends of Tomorrow. But they just did a crossover with all of them, where they were all in the same episode.
Yeah.
And when Supergirl and Flash are together, I'm just like, that's the team up I want to see. Like, I'm just not excited about this Superman and this Batman, doing stuff together. It just doesn't, I don't know. So I'm excited. Maybe somebody will give it a little new life. That should be good.
Finally,
I hope so. I think fresh perspective is never a bad thing.
Absolutely.
Even if it fails, at least we got to see something different.
Yep.
All right. Finally, YouTube star Adam Salih was kicked off of a Delta flight for speaking in Arabic to his mom on the phone.
Ugh.
Passengers aboard the flight claimed that they felt uncomfortable with Adam and his friend Slim, and they were removed from the flight. Now, there's two sides to this story, apparently. First off, do we care?
Oh, absolutely. I think we have to be very vigilant about continuing to care about this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Adam Salih is known as a huge prankster, and the video only started recording after Delta was escorting them off of the plane, so we don't know if what they were doing before was actually antagonistic or anything.
Sure.
But I don't know. Obviously, there were people who were on the plane in the video, and they were like, let them speak in whatever language they want. This is a free country. And then other people on the plane were, get him out of here, stuff like that. So obviously, this is a huge issue right now because technically there is no right to fly.
Right. Delta can absolutely take anybody off their plane for any reason they want.
But morally, this is a huge issue.
Yeah. So. There have been stories and like you said, if he's a prankster, that puts a little bit of a shadow on this story for me because, like you said, I would like to know exactly what he was doing. Was he trying to, appear, nefarious or weird?
I think what you're doing, Aaron, you're attempting to give him the benefit of the doubt. Based on the few things I know about this kid, he doesn't deserve the benefit of the doubt. And all pranksters, in my opinion, are not very talented, and some of them have found great success, and good for them. But like this guy particularly, some of the things I've read that he said is just, I am not a fan. And if he got kicked off a flight, I am inclined to believe that he probably did something to deserve it. But at the same time, if there's any truth that he got kicked off just for speaking Arabic, it's disheartening and it's sort of demoralizing that we keep experiencing this in 2016. But unfortunately, it's also not surprising.
Yeah,
given who we just elected president. Like, this is kind of the culture we live in now. People are xenophobic, almost to a prideful degree, and it's alarming. Like, people are proud to be racist, and that's like what is going on. Either way, whether he's telling the truth or he's exaggerating, both situations I'm not a fan of.
So a couple things in response to that. Number one, I will say this has happened to people who aren't pranksters. Yeah. There have been stories of, those, of Arabic descent or whatever being taken off planes because people weren't comfortable with, that they were writing in Arabic or that they were wearing, Islamic kind of clothing or whatever. So it does exist. The other response I would
absolutely.
The other response I would have to what you said, John, though, is, and maybe I'm just too much of an optimist. I think we continue to let the idiots and the extremists appear to be greater than they are, and I think there has been some emboldening that has happened this year because of
that is an excellent word.
You mentioned Trump or whatever, but I think we are hearing loud voices from what is still very, very, very much a minority of people who
I would agree.
So
the minority is always the loudest,
and I just want it's so difficult, right? Because you want to continue to say, look, this is wrong. It's awful. Xenophobia is very dangerous, and there's just a judgmentalism in it that can be really dangerous in a lot of ways as we continue to separate ourselves based on whatever the case may be, and at the same time. When I look around at my immediate world, for instance, I was just on a plane last week from Los Angeles, And in just the 3 rows around me, there was an older black man talking to what looked like an Arabic teenager. There was, and they were having great conversations. I was talking to the homosexual next to me. We had a great conversation. It's just these ways we separate ourselves from what I see in the world directly around me. Most people get it. Most people understand humans are humans and to treat each other with respect. And it's just unfortunate that those who don't get it are so loud.
And the other thing is, nobody's going to make a film on YouTube about good things happening on a plane. You're never going to see that video pop up on YouTube. I had a brilliant flight. Everybody was kind and gentle and caring and respectful. You're never going to see that YouTube video. You're only going to see these. So that, limits greatly your view on the world to only negativity.
Yeah. All right. Well, good. I've enjoyed Siftpop political. Maybe we can Sift politic there for a second. No, that's always good. Listen, I don't fear talking about anything on this podcast. Yeah, we're pop culture. If you come for pop culture talk and you hear those kind of things and that bothers you, I apologize. But I mean, we're human beings doing a podcast, and there's a whole gamut of things that intersect.
Intrinsically, that's critics are very intertwined with politics.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it would be a disservice if we weren't mindful of our worldviews, incorporating them into our thoughts on everything else. And
amen.
I think Roger Ebert once famously said something very similar to that. Like, people always say, like, oh, you're a critic, you should shut up, don't talk about politics. But it's like, I'm exactly the type of person who should, because I have an outlet, people respect my opinion. And if it pertains to anything that matters in my life, movies or politics or whatever, I think I have a responsibility to speak on that issue. And obviously it's important to be mindful that you don't go overboard or jam your opinion down someone else's throat. But I think to ignore it entirely is just kind of like sticking your head in the sand and hoping the problem goes away.
Totally agree. On to Passengers.
Hello? Is anybody here?
Do you know what's going on?
Nobody else is awake. We woke up 90 years too soon.
This can't be happening. We have to go back to sleep.
Who wants to sleep on a beautiful day like this?
Passengers. Chris Pratt, Jennifer Lawrence star as a couple of people taking an interstellar voyage amongst other peoples as well. We'll try to stay as far away from spoilers as possible, not only for you, but also for John, who hasn't had a chance to see it yet.
Oh, okay.
But we do want to talk a little bit about the movie, kind of what we thought. And John, you will play the role of asking non-spoiler questions that you might be curious about or want to know about the film. So let's start with just general thoughts. Andrew, did you like it, love it, hate it, didn't like it, or it was just okay?
It was just okay.
Okay, so you were kind of right down the middle?
Yeah, even... just okay.
I liked it. Liked it. And what's interesting about that,
Really?
Yes, and here's what I do as far as kind of seeing what other critics think. I will write my review first before I go anywhere, before I go to Rotten Tomatoes, anywhere like that.
Yeah, sure.
That's always a
Keeps you
good idea.
unbiased.
I can't always help myself, but I try to do that blind if I can.
I find it...
Because it's hard not to be influenced by what other people think.
Exactly. And these moments are the reasons I do that, because I am forced to confront that I really liked a movie that most critics didn't like. And, after I'd written my review, I went to Rotten Tomatoes. I think it's like at 31%.
Wow.
And it kind of blew my mind. I was like...
It's not that bad.
I hope not, because I really had a good time.
Yeah.
I guess I'll start since I enjoyed it with some of the things that I liked.
Yeah.
First of all, I think Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt were made to do movies together. I thought they were great together.
I disagree on that part.
And maybe that's the primary disagreement that a lot of critics might have, but I thought their chemistry was really good. They are both so charming and likable as people that when
I first heard about the casting for this movie, that was what had me most excited, because they seem very, very type A, and they seem like they'd be the perfect match. They're both jokesters, and they're both really jovial and, I don't know, bubbly is a good word, charismatic. And more than anything, they're both really, really easy to look at. So I was like, this seems like a match made in heaven. Let's see what they can do with it. And so I don't know. I'm very interested because I'm hearing conflicting things about it. And I want to like it. When I heard about the movie and the premise, I'm like, this looks like a movie I'm going to love. It has two of my favorite actors. It's a really cool sci-fi premise. But I don't know, Andrew?
Yeah, tell us a little bit about why the chemistry didn't work for you.
Because honestly, this isn't spoilerish, but it's going to sound weird saying this movie would have been so much better if Jennifer Lawrence was not in it. If this was just Chris Pratt, the only one, this movie would have been astronomically better.
Nice play on words there with astronomically.
That was total happenstance. Didn't even mean to do that.
You just claim it. Just claim it.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. Now you got it.
Punning all day long, ladies and gentlemen. But no, if this was just Chris Pratt and you made this movie more along the lines of like Moon or Castaway, I think this movie would have been so much better.
I would like to see that movie. I will agree with you that could have been a great movie. I will disagree with you and say if I were to pick one, I would have picked Jennifer Lawrence.
Really?
I thought her performance was better than his in this.
That's interesting. Interesting.
There are some moments in this where she blew my mind with her performance. She is asked to do some things, some really confusing, like moral quandary things in this movie to react to, and again, without giving anything away, I thought it was incredible how much I bought into what she was feeling.
That's fascinating because I feel that way about Chris Pratt because at the beginning of this movie, he has to make a choice about something.
Yes.
And I've never seen him better as an actor.
No, I would agree with that. I thought he was great too. I just thought she had moments of what I would say were award-worthy moments. I thought
she was overacting in parts. This is crazy. This is crazy.
Well, sometimes, and we've talked about this before too, and it's part of what I love about movies. Sometimes you're just in the right mood for a particular movie.
Yeah.
And that may have been it for me. I may have been just in the perfect mood to see this movie.
I think I've been really interested in exploring that phenomenon because I feel like there are certain movies where I sit down and I watch them and I come out of it thinking I didn't get anything out of that. I'm like, was I just in a bad mood?
Right.
Whereas like there was another day where I watched Dances with Wolves at the end of like a 7-movie marathon. I had been up for like 18 hours, and then I put in a 4-hour Western epic, I loved the crap out of it. Like,
15 of those hours is Dances with Wolves.
and it was one of those things like, this is not a formula that should have worked. I should have fallen asleep. I should have hated it. I should have been bored out of my mind. But I came out of it going like, that so impressed me. And I wonder, like, had I watched that in any other environment, if I was like awake and more cognizant, would I have been like, I'm going to check out? But there was something about it where I was just like, just let it happen, man. I just want to watch this.
Was it your first viewing
for whatever
of
reason, I was like more, what was that?
Was it your first time watching Dances with Wolves? Or had you seen
it was.
Oh, wow, okay.
No, I had never seen it before. And that was my point. It was like, I feel like normally at the end of a long day, I would be less inclined to watch a long, long movie. But for whatever reason, that one was like, it hit me, and it was really powerful, and I loved it. One of the best movies I've ever seen. Whereas I feel like if I'd watched that on another day, I would have been like, yeah, it was whatever.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think there's a lot of discussion. Like maybe you were just in a different mindset than Aaron was.
Well, and I will say, and I guess I'll go into my next point about why I liked it, because I think a lot of it has to do with this point, because I absolutely love movies that are heavy on what would you do in this situation things. And this movie has so many of those situations, and I most love them when they aren't easy answers. And so because your brain is constantly engaged in, oh, would I do that? Would I make that same choice? Oh, what would the consequences be if I had made a different choice? What if
one of my favorite examples of that is Hitchcock's North by Northwest.
Yes.
I was doing that the whole film, and I loved it because it feels like I could be in this situation, and I feel I could be making the same choices, but they'd be difficult ones.
Yeah,
and that's what I connected with it. So I totally get that.
And my wife and I talked all the way home about the "what would you do" kind of stuff.
Choice thingy.
Yeah. And there's 2 or 3 like major choices in this movie.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, oh. And so when my brain is engaged like that, I think I'm very, very susceptible to forgive a lot because I'm in it. Like my brain is in it. I think that's one thing I'm learning about myself through this whole, movie reviewer, critic kind of thing that my life has gone into. Is I'm learning I watch movies with my brain first. Like if I can be intellectually stimulated, I'm going to have a great time. And not that my eyes don't get into the party. I love it, and in fact, I love the visuals in this movie, too.
I was about to say, the one thing we can agree on is how visually beautiful this movie is.
Yeah.
Wow, is that impressive.
It was absolutely stunning. But I'm learning that when my brain is engaged, I'm really able to forgive a lot and or just ignore maybe possible weaknesses that I might see otherwise, and that locks me into the story that way. The other part of that is where my brain was engaged was not just with kind of what would you do stuff. But I also liked the vision of this world, like the idea of what colonization could look like in space and what that might mean and those kind of things. So I felt like it was a well thought out world that made a lot of sense.
And you know what else is funny? I just realized neither Chris Pratt or Jennifer Lawrence had my favorite performance of the movie. It was Michael Sheen.
Was it? Yeah, he was great.
He was the best part of this movie.
Yeah.
Not taking anything away from Chris Pratt, who I thought was better than Jennifer Lawrence, but every single time that Michael Sheen was on the camera, you knew it was going to be a fun scene to watch.
Yeah.
But
I can't wait to talk spoilers with you about this, because there's some things I definitely want to talk about. But let's just, for the sake of non-spoilery stuff, kind of move on
to dislikes.
Yeah, unless you have another like that you would like to bring up.
Okay, so I went into this movie with a general idea of how I thought it was going to play, and then a twist came during the very beginning of this movie, and I was like, "Wow, I did not expect that to be the way this movie was going to be playing out." So the twist in this movie did surprise me and impress me, because that's a very awkward movie to make. So I applaud them for that.
Yeah, in the live comments, Spartan967 says, maybe it's because of the casting, but I figured this would just be a generic throwaway blockbuster. And that is one of the surprises going into this, is it's not a generic throwaway blockbuster. It's actually more of an art film in some ways in what it's trying to deal with and what it's trying to, it's kind of got the drapings of a summer blockbuster with kind of the heart of kind of an artsy think piece in some ways. So it's kind of interesting. And maybe that's part of what doesn't work too. Maybe there's conflicting movies here that don't go quite perfect together.
And one of my first negatives, another movie they try and throw in here is a sappy romance film.
Yes, that is my major negative.
That it's so cheesy in some parts. It's cringeworthy.
It is. And it doesn't have to. It didn't have to be.
Yeah.
It's over the top with I thought it was very soap opera-y. It felt like a soap opera at times, and it's just like, it didn't have to be that.
Yeah.
And so I totally agree with that. That was my major negative.
Yeah. I'll just say this just very, very generically. The ending of this movie, atrocious. It's bad. Very bad. Whenever
I disagree.
Really?
Well, and again, when we go into spoilers, maybe we can get more specific.
Sure.
Because I'm trying to figure out why you think it's so bad, but
yeah.
I kind of liked it.
I hated it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, you'll have to stay tuned to the spoiler cast to find out.
That's the main reason why I can't say I like this film.
Oh,
and it's just
interesting.
okay as that ending
Interesting.
is
I wonder
so
if you
bad.
caught something that I didn't.
I'm very fascinated by all of this, and I can't wait to see the movie for myself.
I think what's fascinating is
I
how
thought maybe you two would sway my opinion, but Aaron's pulled me one way and Andrew the other. So
I think that's why this is so interesting, is because we're so polarizing right now.
Yeah, that doesn't often happen.
It's not often you get two people from sort of similar backgrounds disagree.
It's a good dinosaur all over again.
Well, the good dinosaur was a very specific part about the theme.
That's true.
But yeah. No, I love it. I love that we can have differing opinions. And like I said, apparently most people agree with you, Andrew. So,
really?
Woo! As if Rotten Tomatoes is to be believed.
Oh, I thought you meant in the chat. I was looking for my people, but they're nowhere to be seen.
John, did you have any questions you wanted to ask about the movie? Any kind of insight you wanted to go into?
I prefer to go into movies as ignorant as possible. So I guess my only real query was whether or not it's worth spending money for.
I would say yes, and Andrew would say no, probably, I'm guessing.
No, honestly, I think that for the visual spectacle alone, this is definitely worth seeing in a theater, because that in itself is impressive beyond a lot of films this year.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's interesting because we're coming off of Arrival very recently, which is another movie that tries to be both big sci-fi as well as a think piece, so there's some similarities there. I would actually say Passengers is more visually stunning than Arrival was, and Arrival is more intellectually stunning than Passengers was.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Because I don't think Arrival is trying to be this big, grandiose visual spectacle where I think Passengers is.
Yeah.
So definitely
exactly.
I agree with you on that one, yeah.
Well, let's move on to a couple other movies that one of us has seen, and we'll start with you, John, since you were kind of on the sidelines on that one a little bit. Tell us what you thought about Assassin's Creed. Will it finally break the video game movie curse?
There has been good video game movies.
No. I am embarrassed to report that it is a resounding no. Not only was this a disappointment in the video game genre, this was just a disappointment to fans of the series. It was such a letdown on what was a really intriguing source material. Have either of you played any of the games?
A lot of them. I've played a lot of them.
I've been watching my son. My son has recently picked up several of them and has been going through them, my oldest son, and so I've kind of been watching, but no, I haven't interacted in that world.
The TLDR is that the most of the narrative, 95% of the gameplay of this 15-hour experience on any one of the games takes place in the past, whether that's the Crusades, the Renaissance, or England in the 19th century. And this entire experience where you play as an assassin parkouring around rooftops in Italy is bookended by present-day science lab exposition.
The Animus.
Where your character is experiencing everything through a device called the Animus that allows him to relive the memories of his ancestor. And these are just sort of short little vignettes at the beginning of the story, in between every 3 or 4 hour chapter, that give you a little glimpse of the sort of the future and the present day world and why everything sort of ties together. It was an interesting thread that gave the games a little bit more context, but truthfully, I only ever had fun when I was being an assassin. I like walking around in a lab without the ability to jump, attack, or do anything but talk to one character was pretty boring from a gameplay development, but it did forward the story. So I was surprised to learn that this particular movie decided to basically take that one element and do that for 80 to 90% of the runtime.
So that's what I heard.
So if you like the parkour, if you like the stunts, if you like action, if you like the assassin stuff, see another movie, because it's barely in this one.
Oh, that's too bad.
This is like a 2 hour and 10-minute film, and actually the credits are really long. It's like 11 minutes of credits, so
wow.
Maybe 2 hours. And I don't know why they were so slow. I sat there in the theater. I wanted to wait till the end. I try to watch credits at movies, and I was like, I got to get up and leave. This is boring.
Yeah.
But yeah, director Justin Kurzel did a huge disservice. Like, instead of adapting the source material, he ignored it. And the writers came up with a completely flat and uninteresting plot that involves around this sort of magical MacGuffin that will eliminate violence all over the world. And all these really talented people, Brendan Gleeson, Jeremy Irons, Marion Cotillard, and Michael Fassbender, right front and center. And like all of these people, between them, 2 Oscars, a couple Emmy Awards, and they just sit there like lifeless meatbags, just spouting all this dry exposition about world domination and technology and prisoners, and it's just the only excitement happens when he goes back in the Animus and we see this assassin sort of in his natural environment rather than the present day stuff. But even the assassin sequences, they're just cut so heavily. It felt like I was watching that fence jumping scene in Taken 3. There was just an overload. There was an overload of cuts. It was just like a very edit-happy experience where, yeah, they were like horseback riding. There was a chase between a horse and a stagecoach, and he sort of parkours from building to building to get onto the stagecoach as it's driving away. They're jumping off these huge ledges and buildings, being chased by the police. All really exciting visuals and stunts. It looks gorgeous, period-accurate stuff, but you don't get to appreciate it because every time any action happens, you see it from 4 different angles. And it's like, just give me a wide shot and lock it down for just a second so I can appreciate what's going on here. And all of the stunt work, all of the work that they did in the action, you don't get to appreciate. And it's like that was the only part of the movie that was actually redeeming. The rest of it was just boring present-day vignettes that were just like, we're going to put you in a machine, and now we're putting you in the machine. Here's how the machine works. Also, this is why we're putting you in the machine. Okay, here's 5 seconds of the... Okay, now we're back. That was it for 2 hours. I really hated it.
Wow.
That's so crazy
the more I talk about it, the more I don't like it.
That's crazy. So many people play these games. Nobody wants to play as Desmond in the game. They want to play as
Right, that's
Altair
Jeremy
or
Johns mentioned this in his movie review today, which I just watched. When you go to the store and you pick up a new Assassin's Creed, it doesn't have Desmond on the cover.
Yeah.
The character in present day. It has the assassin. It has Enzio on it.
Enzio and Altair and all those guys. That's who you want to play
Right.
as, and that's who you want to see on the screen.
Let me ask you this. Do you think there's something inherently difficult about video games to translate into a movie?
No.
Why did they often... I know you say there has been a good video game movie.
There's been two.
Because you say, what, Mortal Kombat?
I'm curious because there's so many that don't work, but which two do you think have?
Mortal Kombat, and I honestly, you guys are going to hate on me, but I think Warcraft is a good video game movie.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
I do not agree.
I know nobody...
I would say Prince of Persia was enjoyable. I'm not familiar with the source material.
From what you're telling me about Assassin's Creed, what this company did with Assassin's Creed is what they did with the Prince of Persia franchise as far as taking their, liberties with whatever they want with it. That's why a lot of people hate the Prince of Persia movies, because it was nothing like the games.
Perhaps that's true.
So what you're saying is I should go and see it.
No, I think it's the opposite.
I honestly, no. I would strongly suggest waiting. If you're a fan of the games, I think it might be worth checking out. There are some moments in it that are enjoyable and certainly reminiscent of the game.
That's so unfortunate.
It's too bad because Jeremy Irons and Marion Cotillard and Michael Fassbender, these are good actors. Give them a real script to work with.
I just wonder if there's something diametrically different about what makes a good video game, like playability, those kind of things, and what makes a good movie that makes this a little more difficult than, adapting a book or, something like that.
Well, here's what it is. Whenever you're playing a video game, you immerse yourself in that protagonist. You become them. So if you're watching a movie and you don't feel that same kind of connection to the main protagonist of the film, that's whenever you're going to lose that sense of connection.
you loved about the game?
Exactly. Because whenever I'm playing Uncharted, I am Nathan Drake. I'm making all of his decisions. I go through everything he does. As opposed to a movie, whenever you're watching a movie, you feel a sense of separation most of the time with the character.
Yeah, it's like when I'm going to go to my video game library. When I'm Mario and I'm in, Super Mario Galaxy or something and I'm flying between planets, it's totally different than watching that on a screen. Like watching that on a screen would be kind of boring unless there was something intellectually stimulating about it. But when I'm playing it, it's like I'm doing it. So I think there's something different there.
So you're saying that Bob Hoskins didn't cut it for you, huh?
No. We had a few good suggestions in the chat. Tron was mentioned. I actually could get on board with that being a good video game movie, although I don't know, was Tron a video game before it was a movie? Or so it was a movie first.
The Tron bikes was a game after the movie came out.
Last Starfighter was mentioned, but again, that's not actually a video game. It just is about a video game.
Yeah. We're talking about video game to film adaptation.
Yeah. And the other one that was mentioned was King of Kong Fistful of Quarters, which is a phenomenal movie, but is also not necessarily adapting King Kong to a movie. So
love it.
Well, as mentioned in the comments, maybe the Tetris movies will break the streak. So
hey, we got 5 of them.
Yeah, they've got plenty of them coming up.
How many? 4 or 5
Something
Tetris
like
movies
that.
coming out? Yeah,
that is sad to know that it was not good. You know what?
No, I scored it a 3 out of 10. It was one of my lowest ranking. It's one of the lowest ranking experiences I've seen at a theater this year.
Because I am so excited to talk best ever challenge sci-fi movies, let me just do Sing really quickly.
Okay, yeah.
I disagree again, apparently, with the critics. It's like a 71% on Rotten Tomatoes. I hated it. I thought it was awful.
Oh, man.
Thought the only,
good.
I thought the
good.
only,
I'm glad you said that because I thought it looked dumb.
The only thing that saves it is the music, which is, it's just like great music is great music, whether an animal is pretending to sing it or not. So, like, when those tunes hit, you're like enjoying yourself. But the story is every single story you've ever seen before. There's nothing new about it. It's the humor is much more DreamWorks and much less Pixar, if that makes sense to you. It's much more,
Yes.
Who did make it?
It's actually Illumination.
Oh, okay.
I was going to say Illumination.
The
Minions.
Minion people, yeah.
I didn't buy any of the voice talent, with the exception of Seth MacFarlane as the mouse. Every other one felt like somebody standing in a studio reading lines and then pasted onto a character on screen. I just had a really bad time with it. And
Oh no.
so I think it's the definition of a kid's movie. There's a difference between an animated film and a kid's movie. This is a kid's movie. Kids may have a blast at this, but I just couldn't.
Yeah, do you think that this movie relied too much on people's enamoration with The Voice and American Idol and stuff like that to
I guess.
get people to go and see it?
I mean, that is the very flimsy plot skeleton that it's built upon, but that's what it is. It's American Idol with animals. It's Animal Idol. Maybe that would have been amazing.
Aaron does have the ability to hate animated films.
That's right. Usually I love animation.
Can confirm, ladies and gentlemen.
All right. Let's move on to a very exciting conversation. Our best ever challenge about science fiction.
Ooh.
This could be its own podcast.
Very well could be.
The fact that
I feel like we should have some quick thoughts today, and I feel like we all have essays to write on this topic. So maybe we do want to take a rain check and really explore this in detail. But for now, just top 3 from each of us, and we'll try to keep it short.
Yeah, we'll just keep it quick, and we'll start, Andrew, with you. What's your number 3?
Interstellar.
Oh, interesting.
Good choice.
Yes,
Good choice.
Interstellar coming in at number 3.
Here's how crazy this topic is. I love Interstellar. It's not in my top 20. I have a top 20 here.
Whoa.
Oh, if you were given...
Whoa.
Hey... You should have let me know, man. I could have brought my top 100.
No, we're just doing top 3.
Yeah.
I just mean, for me, in thinking about it, I had to really think about, my best ever sci-fi movies. And Interstellar's great, but it's,
I actually went on my top 100 movie list of all time, and I just grabbed, that's the
what I
highest
did.
ranked one.
That's
That's
what
the
I
second,
did.
and that's the third. So that's what I did.
That's what I did too.
So coming in at number 3, Christopher Nolan, one of his best masterpieces ever. I'm not going to lie. Initially, when I saw this movie, I didn't think it lived up to the hype. But every single time I watch this movie, I like it more and more.
I think it's a great movie.
The only movie I can really think of where the more times I've seen it, the more I've actually loved it, to the point I think this movie is brilliant.
Yeah, no, I think it's really good. What about you, John?
I only watched Interstellar the one time, and I immediately was like, best movie of the year. This is the greatest thing I've seen since pretty much The Dark Knight. It floored me. While I love Interstellar, my number 3 would have to be, I wrote it down and I already forgot my space. Let's go with Children of Men for my number 3.
Oh, good choice. Again, not even on my list, but that's a great film.
You know what? This is the movie that everybody and their mother thinks is a brilliant movie that I just don't like.
You don't get Children of Men?
I don't.
Really?
Yeah. I know. It's crazy. Everybody's like, how can you not like Children of Men? And I'm like... it just didn't grab me.
It can be an acquired taste. Alfonso Cuarón has
and that's like, I love his movies. Gravity is brilliant, but for some reason, Children of Men just did not grab me.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it in many, many years. So maybe rewatching it as I've matured and grown older, I would maybe knock this down a point. And there's plenty of movies to throw in my top 3, but I wanted to grab kind of an oddball choice. And I like the concept of world removed from fertility, where no one can have kids. The human race is doomed to extinction as soon as the youngest person dies. And it was, or as soon as the last person grows old. And it was a very interesting concept. And I think the visuals, those long, 8 or 10-minute shots that are famous from this film without any cuts or edits, just from a filmmaking standpoint, it's groundbreaking. From the cast, just loaded with excellent talent like Clive Owen, Julianne Moore, Michael Caine, and Chiwetel Ejiofor before he was really a big name and won an Oscar. So, I mean, there's a lot of great people in it. It's a really cool concept, and it just, more than anything, it gives us a realistic and dark glimpse of our future while still maintaining a little bit of hope. And I kind of like that. I like the world building. It was very interesting to me.
My number 3 is from a director that's already been mentioned. It is Inception. Is my number 3 science fiction movie.
Another great one.
I love Inception. I get that there's a lot about it that people can pick apart. It is just such a crazy, brilliant meta level experience with the way time works differently in the different layers, and the way the bookends of the movie I found to be absolutely brilliant. The conversation you can have after about what really happened, what's going on, all that stuff has some of my sci-fi staples. So that would be my number 3.
I would call that movie ambitious.
Yeah, that's a good word.
All right, are we up for
number 2? What do you got?
This movie came out this year, and it's my number 2 sci-fi film of all time.
It's Arrival,
It's
huh?
Arrival.
Wow.
I don't know why people have asked me why do I
It's
love
on
this
my
movie
list.
so much. It is on your list?
Yeah, but not in my top 3, but it's on the list I have in front of me.
Arrival is one of the most unique, original, incredibly brilliant, and just the twists that happened in this movie are unlike anything I've ever seen before.
Yeah.
Again, the way this movie works with time, and I know you particularly, Aaron, are very particular when it comes to how time is worked into a movie. Maybe that's why you loved Inception so much.
Yeah.
But wow, this movie floored me, and I think it's the closest this year for me that I gave to a 10. I gave it a 9.6. So it's the closest to a 10.
That's pretty incredible. It reminds me of another movie that's on my list that I'll just go ahead and mention now. It's not in my top 3, which is 12 Monkeys, is another movie that deals with time in really interesting ways that is one of my favorite sci-fi movies. So,
oh, yeah.
What about you, John? What's your number 2?
The greatest sci-fi action movie of all time, Terminator 2: Judgment Day.
Whoa!
Good call. Good call.
Has to make any list. It sounded at first like you were shocked by my pick.
I'm just shocked at how many great sci-fi movies there are that I didn't even think to put on my list. Like I didn't even think about T2.
You feel bad about leaving him off.
Am I wrong though? Is it
Not
not
at all.
a great?
No, it's great.
You are not wrong at all.
I mean, this is. I grew up in this era. I'm a bit younger than you, Aaron, and this was for me one of the first R-rated movies I ever sort of stuck to my friend's house to watch. So I have nostalgic memories of it. But it is just wall to wall one of the greatest, most cohesively made action films ever made. And the sci-fi premise of the time-traveling cyborgs pitted against each other in present-day 1990s Los Angeles is just a recipe for success. The entire movie is flawless, for lack of a better word. And I know there's probably mistakes in it, but James Cameron has proven time and time again he knows what people like and he delivers it. So that's an easy pick for me. That's always been like, I bought that movie on VHS, DVD, Blu-ray. I love that thing.
Same with me, yeah.
I don't care what you say. I don't care how much of it's nostalgia. I don't care. Star Wars: A New Hope is my number 2. I love that movie, and I will till the day I die.
Why did you think we were going to give you crap for that?
Because it's cheesy.
Wait till you hear my number 1.
The only thing I would give you crap for is that technically it's not science fiction; it's science fantasy. So I feel like it should be disqualified from this discussion. But I think on most lists it sort of counts as science in some respect. It's in the future.
So how would you distinguish fantasy from fiction then?
It's based in reality. I mean, Star Wars literally has magic as like a defining plot point.
Oh, okay.
Star Trek is fiction because it's based in sort of our galaxy. It's based in our timeline, our future with actual. It might be implausible transporters and replicators, but it's based in technology. Whereas Star Wars is literally based in these people have magic powers. And that's all there is to it.
So let me ask you.
I don't buy the midi-chlorians thing. Like we can forget that ever happened.
Let me ask you this then. So a movie like, which is another one on my list, not in my top 3, but a movie like The Fifth Element, would that be science fantasy instead of science fiction?
No, I think that counts as fiction. And I don't even know if I can qualify the difference. But to me, that seems like fiction, where Star Wars is sort of famously science.
I don't know, it seems like there's a lot of magic.
I'm actually with Aaron on this one.
Yeah,
mainly because of my number 1.
What's your number 1?
Empire Strikes Back.
Okay,
so I have to make the case for Aaron.
When in doubt, I'll just check IMDb, and it lists the Star Wars franchise as action, adventure, fantasy.
There you go.
Not as sci-fi.
Oh.
And that's usually what I go to as an arbitrator on all things movies. Is IMDb.
That's interesting. No,
I
love that. That's a great discussion. That's a great distinction. I'm glad to have had that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's a technicality, and I have Empire Strikes Back is my second favorite movie ever. But I specifically chose not to mention in my top 3. Because I feel like it's kind of fantasy.
Thinking now, I think I know what Aaron's number 1's going to be, and I'm excited to see if I'm right. But what was? Okay. Did you want to talk any more about New Hope? I kind of overtook you there.
Well, let's just say this, since you said Empire for your number 1.
Yeah.
I think we kind of get why.
yeah, totally. And I love Empire, but I can never put Empire above A New Hope.
Really?
And, yeah,
we did the other day.
It's well, we did as a group though, but if you remember in mine,
Really? I thought you said
Hope.
Empire was your number one on that list.
Maybe it was.
I think it was.
I don't know. I just
Empire is the better film, but I think A New Hope deserves more credit because it started it.
Yeah.
And I think whenever you're ranking trilogies, you have to sort of get, if it's a tie, I think it has to go to the inaugural installment, if only because this is the one that created the universe and this introduced us. Whereas Empire already had, and it had a running start. It had all of the greatest characters already hand delivered to it when the first scene began.
I thought
so
I had
when
A
you
New
don't
Hope
have
at
to
number
do all
one.
that.
Maybe not.
When you don't have to do that pesky world building, sequels can improve. That's why T2 is better. That's why Spider-Man 2 is better. That's why The Dark Knight is better. It's because they kind of got all that world building out of the way, and you can focus on story.
Yeah, no, that makes
which doesn't mean these movies aren't the best moment of the trilogy, but I feel like inherently it kind of feels like they got a head start.
I think for me, I think what I thought my ranking in the Star Wars was, I think you guys had A New Hope so much lower than me that we eliminated it like at number 4 or something. Because I think my list was A New Hope, Empire, and then Force Awakens. Like I think those are my top
is that
3
what
right now.
Then?
Something like that, but it's we can go back and listen.
Go
Somebody
back and
will
listen.
remind us. Absolutely.
Yeah.
What's your number 1, John?
Back to the Future, my favorite movie.
Yeah, I've got that on my list too.
That is an easy pick for me. Again, this is it's not like the esoteric sci-fi. It's not like a thinker. It's a comedy, but it is it is for me in my book the most enjoyable movie ever made. It is just the kind of thing I can turn on at any point, no matter what my mood is, and I will instantly be hooked to the screen, follow every minute of all 119, and just have a good time, be entertained, laugh, whatever, and it is perfection. In cinema. I love Back to the Future so much. There's nothing wrong with it.
I love that movie. I disagree that there's nothing wrong with it. Because again, it goes back to my time travel, time stuff. I just get distracted by paradoxes and those kind of things, and I don't think Back to the Future handles time well. But I don't think it has to be a great movie.
And the title doesn't make sense.
My number 1.
I have written down my prediction of what Aaron's number 1 is.
Andrew has written down a prediction.
Okay.
I will read his prediction first and then tell you if he is indeed correct. His prediction is The Matrix, and he is indeed correct.
Yeah!
That is my number 1 sci-fi movie of all time.
That was like my number 4 or 5. That
Yeah,
was really Jurassic Park was also an honorable mention.
Yeah, Jurassic Park was in my honorable mention as well. Yeah.
Matrix.
I love The Matrix. I will never forget the first time I saw it, how much it blew my mind. It's easy to forget sometimes because of how many movies have aped a lot of what they did. But it was a completely unique experience the first time, when it came out and seeing it. And not only that, but it was intellectually stimulating through the whole thing. It did this beautiful thing where it never laid its metaphor on so thick that you couldn't have your own interpretation of it, and yet it laid it on thick enough that it was meaningful. And that's a really difficult balance to have sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I like the way you described that.
And that's because that was the failure, I think, of the sequels, was the metaphor got laid on too thick.
It got too philosophical.
Yeah, and then it was like, I don't have room for my own, to see my own way through it because you're telling me exactly, what it has to be. Metaphor is, I think, often at its most beautiful when it finds that balance. In The Matrix, I think, found that balance perfectly.
Honorable mentions?
Yeah, I can run some. You want to run some of yours?
Well, because I forgot that Jurassic Park is technically a sci-fi film, and it should have been my number 2 on my list then.
Yeah.
But
I feel like it's interesting. We probably maybe should have qualified earlier. I feel like Matrix is probably the best pure science fiction film ever made. I think Interstellar is certainly in that conversation, but Terminator, it's more action than sci-fi. Back to the Future, it's more comedy. Star Wars is more fantasy. So there's certainly, like, a lot of these things fill in 2 diagrams of the Venn chart. Whereas Matrix, I feel like, is like a pure science fiction story from front to start, and it's excellent for that.
Would you count
some other honorable mentions?
Would you count Alien?
Gravity?
As a science fiction?
Alien, I feel like, is more horror or more action, even.
Okay.
Yeah.
But again, it's certainly sci-fi, but there's a lot of elements of those other 2.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of action in Matrix as well, but I feel like that purely adheres to science fiction first, action second, and there's not a lot of other movies I can think that qualify.
Go ahead, John.
At least in sort of the realm we're talking about, the movies that are like top echelon. Total Recall is great. Minority Report, The Martian, Edge of Tomorrow.
Yep.
All these are fantastic films.
You mentioned several on my list. Here's the honorable mentions that I had. Arrival was mentioned. Minority Report was mentioned. Galaxy Quest. It's one of my favorites. Love Galaxy Quest.
I love Galaxy Quest. I actually had that on here too.
Back to the Future was mentioned. Is Ghostbusters science fiction?
Again, that's probably more like comedy fantasy.
Okay, all right.
There's elements of it. So
I had Wrath of Khan on my list.
That's solid. I like the Star Trek reboots a lot. I like those more than any of the original 10. I would probably include Into Darkness in a list like this.
Sure. Contact, Independence Day, Men in Black.
Yes.
Gravity, I think was mentioned. Gattaca, I didn't hear anybody mention. I love Gattaca.
Yeah.
Let's see. Fifth Element, I mentioned. Jurassic Park. Iron Giant. Does that qualify?
Vin Diesel's Iron Giant? Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Well, he is. Vin Diesel is Iron
Wally's
Giant. Did you know that?
Well, that was my final one I was going to mention was Wall-E. Would probably... Wall-E was almost my number 3, but Inception just beat it out. So
here's some honorable mentions. Blade Runner. District 9.
Yeah.
Did we mention?
Oh, that's actually a really good one.
Did we mention Minority Report or
yes.
Primer?
We mentioned Minority Report, but not
just
Primer.
Briefly.
Okay, Moon.
Yeah, that's a good choice too.
Yep.
Looper. Nobody mentioned Serenity. I have to throw out Serenity.
Absolutely, sure.
Then probably Sunshine, RoboCop, Total. You mentioned Total Recall.
Yeah.
Everybody's all up on Donnie Darko, but I'm not. Guardians of the Galaxy. Would you count that as a sci-fi film?
I thought of it, and for me, if it's a comic book movie, it's a comic book movie.
Okay.
Like that, I
That's
couldn't.
fair. That's fair.
I feel like Avengers, Iron Man, they are technically sci-fi, but they sort of exist in a separate category.
Yeah, they're their own thing, I think.
Okay, that's fair. That's all I had.
There you go. What a great conversation.
I really like Avatar. I feel like Avatar needs mention.
Yeah.
Even though I feel like I love it more than most people do.
You know, it was funny because I guessed it on a podcast recently about the best movies of 2009 when Avatar came out. And of the 4 of us, the other 3 just hated Avatar. And I was kind of like cowering.
I loved it.
Cowering in the corner going.
I'm like the only one I know that gave it like a 10 out of 10, though. That's just me.
I think there's good stuff there.
I really like Avatar a lot.
I mean, I get why people hate it. You know, they feel like the story is, regurgitated, repurposed, that kind of thing. But man, the world building in that movie was incredible.
Yeah.
So anyhow, I thought
I've mentioned this before in its defense that I don't think any experience in cinema has ever compared to the first time I saw that in 3D on the big screen. It was the most visually impressive piece of filmmaking I had ever seen. It was just like, wow.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I was like literally breathless. There was a couple scenes where they're crawling through the floating islands on beanstalks. And I just like remember having goosebumps over my body. Like, James Cameron, you have teleported me to another planet, and this is fantastic.
And that's what you said during your review on CinemaSins, wasn't it? That you thought that you were actually transported to Pandora and you wanted to go back.
I wanted to go back, yeah.
Avatar is the first movie I've ever seen in IMAX 3D. So
nice.
That's why it holds a
Very
special
cool.
place
Probably
in my
the
heart.
one to see in 3D.
Let's do real quickly our buried treasure. Andrew, why don't you start?
Mine's charity, actually.
Yeah?
It's
Just in general?
It's the season of giving.
Just giving to things?
So, did a charity this year for Christmas. There's this charity called Heifer International. And what the charity does is you can donate specific amounts of money and buy livestock for people around the world. So I bought an alpaca for a kid named Carlos in Peru, and he's going to use that alpaca to make milk and butter, and he's going to shear the wool to make clothing and stuff for his community. And then once the alpaca has a baby, it gets donated to another member of that community. Super cool. You can buy like oxen, chickens, llamas, rabbits, and stuff for people all around the world. My sister bought education for a little girl in Argentina, I think. And I thought I'd never heard of the charity until recently. Super cool. I wanted to let everybody know about it.
Very awesome. I wondered if maybe that was you who was responsible for the giant cow that was in my yard the other day.
Happy Heifer Day! So yeah, you can go, I think it's heifer.org is their website. Heifer spelled Heifer.
Very cool.
So, yep.
What about you, John? You, John?
My Buried Treasure is a song that I discovered last week when I watched the movie Streets of Fire for the first time. It is a bizarre and unique cult classic of 80s cinema that mixes sort of the 50s greaser movement with neo-noir punk visuals. Has a who's who of before they were famous people like Willem Dafoe and Diane Lane, Amy Madigan, Rick Moranis. The song that opens the movie Streets of Fire is called Nowhere Fast. It's by a band that doesn't exist, created just for the movie itself. And Diane Lane lip syncs the opening. It's just sort of under the credits. But it's catchy. It's like a big, upbeat pop song in the style of Meatloaf, written by the same guy, Jim Steinman. And it's just catchy. It's a fun 80s pop rock song that opens up like a really bizarre and unique movie that most people probably haven't seen. It's so catchy. I've had it playing all week, stuck in my head. I love the thing.
Very cool. My Buried Treasure is a movie I just saw, one of the screeners I got this year, called Don't Think Twice. It's by Mike Birbiglia, and it's about an improv comedy troupe. The girl from Community is on there. Was her name Jillian?
Yeah.
And
Keegan-Michael Key in this as well?
Yeah, Keegan-Michael Key. So good cast, fun concept, interesting. I think they shot a lot of it improvised, but I was surprised at how deep the emotion in it was. And that's one of the things I always love about a movie like that, when it can bring both an interesting concept as well as, some real human drama. So something you might want to check out there as well.
Nice.
So has Keegan-Michael Key sort of, has he won whatever proverbial race he was having with, what's his name, Jordan Peele? I mean, I feel like for a long time people are always going to wonder, like, which one of these guys is going to break out, and I feel like it's Key, right? He kind of...
Well, Jordan has that horror film
now.
coming out next year that I'm super stoked for.
Yeah, it's going to be a marathon, not a sprint, I think, to know how their careers go. Also, they just did Keanu together, and they were amazing in it.
So funny.
It was a fun movie.
I don't think they're done working together by a long stretch.
No,
so.
just because their show is done doesn't mean...
I certainly hope not, but it seems like Michael seems to have more visibility in projects as of late.
I would agree with that, but I don't think that either of them is trying to outdo each other. I just think that they're just trying to make good content.
It sort of happens that sometimes one guy ends up more famous than the other, and whatever happened to the guy that was on Bosom Buddies with Tom Hanks? It's not Tom Hanks, that's for sure. Some guys go on to great things, other guys don't. I don't even know the other guy's name.
Well, it's not that people, some go on to great things and other go, don't. It's that they go on to great things that aren't as visible. You never know what's happening. It's just a matter of visibility sometimes. Well, I think that's it, guys.
Woo, we did it.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Siftpop, part of the Studio DNA podcast network. You can find out more about other live and later shows on the network by following the feed. That's at mixlr.com/studiodna. That's Mixlr, mixlr.com/studiodna. Huge thanks again to today's guru, John Paula.
Hey, thank you so much.
John,
I always feel like whenever I'm on this show, I end up just running overtime 30 minutes, and we have to cut subjects, so... Thanks for having me on and letting me ramble.
No problem. What do you want to send people to?
I don't really care at this point. It's the end of the year. Go have a Merry Christmas, everyone.
Hey,
just be thankful. Just be thankful you survived the end
of 2016.
And if you must fill your free time with mindless free YouTube content, head over to jogwheel.com.
There you go. Much love and gratitude as well to our Patreon supporters for giving monthly to make this show and others on the network possible. Support starts at $3 a month, comes with some pretty fun perks, including your own dedicated podcast feed, where all them exclusive pre-shows and bonus shows show up automatically that nobody else gets to listen to but our patrons. So you can check that out again at patreon.com/studiodna. Also, if you want to rate, comment, do all those things that you can at your podcast player of choice, we appreciate it, especially if it's iTunes, because they use that information to promote the show to other people who might enjoy it. If there's anything else you want to say, any interaction you want to have, you can always email us. Our email is feedback@siftpop.com.